Hey everybody, it's Ranger Stacy coming to you from Sesquicentennial State Park. I'm joined by my daughter Taylor, who will be probably in and out of the video today. I am the park interpreter at Sesquicentennial State Park. We're going to be doing our Discover Carolina program that we do for first graders when they come out here on field trips, and it's called Plantastic. And if you'll follow me to our outdoor classroom, we'll get started and we're going to be talking about plants. Here we go. Okay, so as soon as everybody's seated, we get started. And one of the things you'll notice in our outdoor classroom is that we are completely surrounded by trees. And that is because right now, our classroom is situated in the middle of a forest. And so what better place to learn more about some of the trees that live and grow right here in South Carolina. So if you're in first grade, you are studying plants and learning about plants in the springtime. And did you know that a tree is a plant? Of course you did. Did you know that trees are some of the biggest, tallest plants? Of course you did. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to review the 6 parts of a tree. And you guys, those are the same 6 parts of every plant. So if we look at our drawing here, can everybody tell that's a drawing of a tree? Okay, so we're going to label this tree and label the 6 parts of it. So if we start all the way down here at the very, very bottom, what is this part of the tree called? The roots. Yes, all right, so we're going to label this the roots. Question, do all trees have roots? Yes. Are they important? Absolutely, they are very important. The roots have 2 jobs that they do for the tree. Can you think of any of the jobs that the roots might do for the tree? Okay, they hold the tree in the ground and keep it from falling over. So you guys, if we all went out together as a group, and let's say we pushed on that great big pine tree over there, and we all pushed on it as hard as we could we knock it over? No, why not? Because the roots are holding it in the ground and keeping it from falling. What about on a breezy day? Does the wind knock all the trees down in the forest? Nope. And that's because those roots are holding it in the ground. But you guys, the roots have another very important job. What could it be? Yes, they take in the water and the nutrients for the tree. Can a tree survive without water? No, so they have to have their roots to get water. Okay, moving on. What is this part of the tree called? The stem. Exactly. Do all trees have a stem? Yes, they do. But a lot of times when we're talking about a stem of a tree, we call this another name. Can anybody think of the other name of the stem of a tree? What's that? Yes, the trunk. Okay, so I'm going to write that up here too. The trunk of the tree. So a lot of times when we're talking about tree stems, we call them a trunk, but it's the same exact thing. So the trunk and the stem are the same thing. Are they important? Absolutely. The trunk has 2 important jobs also. Can you think what jobs the trunk might have? What does the trunk do for the tree? Yes, it holds the whole top of the tree. So it's got to hold the leaves and all the other parts of the tree up here. Can you guys imagine if trees didn't have trunks? What would they look like? They'd be like bushes. Yeah, that would be super weird. Yeah, so the trunk helps the tree grow tall and holds the whole top of the tree. But the trunk has another very important job. Can you think what it might be? It carries the water from the roots all the way to the top of the tree. So basically that trunk is like a giant straw, and it sucks all the water clear from the roots to the top of the tree. And you know what? A very wise first grader once told me that the trunk is like an elevator, and it carries everything up to the top of the tree. I thought that was really smart. Okay, every trunk has a special layer on the outside of it that helps protect the tree. Can anybody think what that layer is on the outside? The bark, yes. And guess what? Every single tree has a different kind of bark. That's one of the things we'll be doing in part 2 of our video, is going out and looking at trees, studying, investigating trees, and learning more about them, and we'll be looking very closely at their bark. What does the bark protect the tree from? Any ideas? Animals. Okay, how about weather? Yeah, when it's freezing cold outside, do all the trees die? No, because that bark is protecting them. What about in the middle of the summer when it's blazing hot out here? Are all the trees going to die? No, because that bark is protecting them. So the bark protects them from animals, from weather. What about from people? Yeah, have you guys ever seen anybody peeling the bark off of a tree? You guys, what happens if you do that? You can hurt the tree, maybe even kill the tree, because it's got to have that bark there to protect it. And you know what? A very wise first grader once told me that the bark on a tree is like its shield. And I thought that was really smart too. It acts like a shield and protects the tree from everything. So we said every single tree has a different kind of bark. So I want to show you a couple different examples of some tree bark. And when you look at these two pieces of bark, do you think they came from the same tree or a different tree? A different tree. Okay, what are some things you see that are different about these two pieces of bark? Okay, they're a different color. One's darker and one's lighter. So one is kind of a dark brown color and one's a little bit lighter gray color. You touch these pieces of bark, would they feel different? Yes, absolutely. One is smoother and one's bumpier. Which one's smoother? This one or this one? I see this one, yeah. And if you look at these pieces of bark from the side, is one thicker than the other? Absolutely. One's thicker and one's thinner. So which one is thicker? This one or this one? This one, yep. So every single tree has a different kind of bark. And as I said before, that's something we're going to be looking at in part 2 of our Plantastic program. Okay, moving on to the top of the tree. We have 4 more parts, and they're all found up here on top. Who can tell me what one of them is? The leaves, yes. Do all trees have leaves? Yes. Are they important? Absolutely. You guys, the leaves have a very important job because they have to make something for the tree that the tree cannot live without. What do you think they make? Food, yeah. Could you live without food? Not for very long. So could a tree live without its leaves? No, they have to have their leaves to make their own food. And they do that by using the sun. So their leaves make the food for the tree. And guess what? Just like every tree has a different kind of bark, every tree has a different kind of leaf. So I'm going to show you some examples of some different leaves. And when you look at these leaves, you'll see that they come in all different shapes. They can be different sizes. They can even be different colors. I mean, we know all leaves are green, but they might be light green, dark green, shiny green, dull green. There's all different colors. And of course, when you pick them, they turn brown and yellow, don't they? Maybe some of these you've seen before. Maybe some of these you haven't. And guess what? There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of trees, which means there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of different kinds of leaves. Yeah, they're all different. So that's something we're going to be looking really closely at when we go on our walk and we're investigating trees. Okay, next part of the tree. I'm going to give you a hint about this. This is something that we eat. You might be eating one with your lunch today in some form. An apple, yes. And what is an apple? An apple is a kind of fruit. Okay, so, wait, you guys, do all trees have fruit? They do. Wait a minute, do all trees have apples? No, but every single tree does have a fruit of some kind. When you bite into an apple, what's in the middle of it? Seeds. Okay, so we've been talking about all these parts of the tree, and their job and how important they are, you know what? I think the fruit has the most important job of all, because the fruit's job is to protect the seeds. Yeah, because if there were no more seeds, there would be no more trees. Yeah, that's a pretty important job. So anytime you have a fruit, you're always going to have seeds. And guess what? Just like every tree has a different kind of bark and a different kind of leaf, every tree has a different kind of fruit. So I'm going to show you some examples of some fruits, just like we did a moment ago with the leaves. And when you look at these fruits, just like with the leaves, you'll see that they're all different shapes and they're all different sizes. Now, some of these are fruits we eat. Some we definitely do not eat. Just because it's a fruit does not mean that we eat it. Some of these maybe you've seen before. Maybe some of these you haven't. Oh, but speaking of ones we eat, how many of you love to eat sunflower seeds? Me too. All right, did you know that sunflower seeds were technically a fruit? Yeah, so you can eat sunflower seeds and tell your parents you're eating fruit. How many of you like to eat pecans or pecans? That's also a fruit, and that's a fruit from a tree. Yeah, so one of these fruits in here we have all over the park, and you've probably seen them before. So I want to show you an example of one. Let me grab it out of my special bowl over here. And it's one of these. Does anybody know what these are called? It's shaking. That's a gumball. Wait a minute. Do we eat this kind of gumball? No, we definitely do not. But who do you think might love to eat these gumballs? A squirrel. Absolutely. This is one of their favorite foods because remember, we said this is the fruit, and if this is the fruit, what's inside it? Seeds. Yeah. Now, we said that the fruit's job is to protect the seed. Do you think this fruit does a good job of protecting its seeds? Absolutely. Look at the spikes on that thing. It definitely protects its seeds. Yeah, now the reason this is called a gumball is not because it tastes like a gumball. It actually comes from a tree called the sweet gum tree. So that's where it gets its name, from the sweet gum tree. Okay, I want to show you something else. How many of you know what this is? Not an acorn, a pine cone. Yes. So we know that pine cones come from what? Trees. Yeah, so we know that this is part of a tree, right? So let's see if we can figure this out. Let's see, is this pine cone part of the roots? No. How about the trunk? No, definitely not. Oh, wait a minute. Is this pine cone a leaf? Wait, this pine cone isn't a fruit, is it? So this pine cone is kind of like the fruit of the pine tree. Now for our purposes today, we're going to call this the fruit. Pine cones come from a family of trees called gymnosperms, and technically gymnosperms, the word gymnosperm means naked seed, and the reason it's called that is because it does not have an ovary with the fruit that protects the seeds. But for our purposes today, this is basically the fruit or the carrier of the seed. So now that I've said that, what's inside this pine cone? Seeds. Yeah. And if you've ever picked up a pine cone before, what have you noticed about the outside of it? Taylor, what have you noticed?
It's spiky.
It's spiky. Super sharp spines. And it'll poke your finger, so you've got to be really careful. But does this fruit do a good job of protecting its seeds? Absolutely. Those little spines help protect it. Yeah. Now, I told you this was sort of like a fruit, the fruit of the pine tree kind of. Do we eat this kind of fruit? No, we do not. But who do you think might love to eat this fruit? A squirrel. And as much as they love gumballs, this is probably their favorite food. Because remember, inside of this fruit are seeds. So the squirrels love to eat the seeds from the pine cones. And guess what? Just like every tree has a different kind of bark and a different kind of leaf and a different kind of fruit, every pine tree has a different kind of pine cone. Okay, so this is one of the largest pine cones in South Carolina, and it comes from a tree called the longleaf pine. You don't have to remember that, but just keep that in your brain for just a minute. This one's from the longleaf pine. And guess what? We have longleaf pines all over this park. We have longleaf pines all over South Carolina. So I found this one right here on the park. So if you have a big yard with some mature pine trees, you might have one of these in your yard, maybe around your neighborhood, maybe around your school. So this is what I would consider definitely a large pine cone. So if this is a large, what's the next size down? Medium. All right, let me show you the medium. No, it's this one right here. Do you want to hold or do you want me to? Okay. All right, so Taylor's going to hold the medium pine cone.
It's way smaller.
I knew you were going to say that. Taylor said it's way smaller, but I promise you this is not the smallest. So this medium pine cone, we have a whole bunch of these all over the ground around our outdoor classroom, all around the park. And one thing I want you to notice about these two pine cones, not only are they different sizes, but they're different shapes and they're different colors. Yeah, absolutely. So that's our medium pine cone. And then would you like to see the smallest, one of the smallest pine cones in South Carolina? All right, let me get to our smallest.
This one or that
You
one?
can hold it. I want that one. Yeah, hold it between your fingers like that so the camera can see it. Mm-hmm.
I have that.
No, we'll do that in a minute. Okay. All right. This is one of the smallest pine cones in South Carolina. So if we look at that compared to our large
It's only that.
and our medium, that is the smallest pine cone. And a lot of people, when they see that little pine cone, do you know what they say? They go, oh, it looks like a baby. You guys, that is not a baby pine cone. That's a full-grown adult pine cone. And to prove that to you, I will show you a real baby pine cone. Do you guys want to see a baby pine cone? Okay, let me get the baby pine cone out. Okay, so Taylor's got the baby pine cone. There it is. All right, you're going to have to hold your hand real still so the camera doesn't get blurry. All right, so you'll notice the baby pine cone has little spikes on it to protect it already. And think about it, you guys. All pine cones start out about that size. So imagine going from that to that great big pine cone that we saw. And I think the baby pine cone looks kind of like a pineapple. What do you guys think? Kind of pineapple-y?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our baby pine cone. All right, Tay, you can put those back.
Don't all.
So we were talking about pine cones and the fact that squirrels love to eat them. Do you guys want to see what happens to a pine cone when a squirrel eats it? Okay, let's remember, let's go back. This is what it looks like before a squirrel eats it, okay? You want to show them what it looks like after? Dun, dun, dun. Have you ever seen a pine cone like that? Yeah, that's the leftover evidence of a pine cone being eaten by a squirrel. And, you know, it kind of reminds me of corn on the cob. How many of you love to eat corn on the cob? Me too. All right, well, do you eat the cob? No. So this is kind of like the cob of the pine cone. So the squirrel picks all the seeds off of there and eats them and leaves this behind. So if you find one of these, you'll know a squirrel ate it. Yep, that's a good clue. We have one more part to our tree. I'll give you a hint about this one too. If you were here, well, some of them are on the trees right now, but spring is the best time to see these. If you were here visiting the park, sitting in our outdoor classroom, and you looked out behind our classroom probably about a month ago maybe, some of the trees would have had big, pretty white things on them. What do you think they were? Flowers, yes. You guys, do all trees have flowers? Kind of, yes, in some form or fashion. But I will tell you, they're not all like the flowers that you and I think of. When we think of flowers, we think of big, beautiful, colorful blooms that smell good. You know, we give bouquets of flowers to people that we like. But not all tree flowers look quite like that. So I want to show you a couple examples of some tree flowers. And the first one I have here, I'm almost sure you've seen before. Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah, we'll go back. We'll do that in just a minute. Okay. So first of all, let me tell you, these are not worms. These are actually kind of the flower part. Now, remember earlier when I mentioned gymnosperms? Okay, so these are from gymnosperms. So technically, these are considered to be the male cones of the gymnosperm. But these have something in them that all flowers have, and it's yellow, and it gets on everything in the springtime. Pollen, yeah. So these are the pollen carriers, so kind of like the flower part of a pine tree. Would you give someone you like a bouquet of these? No, these are ugly. They smell terrible. They don't even have petals on them, so they're not complete flowers at all. But they do carry the pollen for pine trees. These are flowers from an oak tree. Now, again, are you going to give somebody you like a bouquet of these? No, these are not pretty. Actually, they were kind of yellowy green color before I picked them, and they dried up and turned brown. But you guys, these also carry pollen. And when I see these on the trees, do you know what they remind me of? Earrings. Can you see that? They look like big dangly earrings. Yeah, so if you see a tree wearing a bunch of earrings, that's probably some type of oak tree. All right, so you guys, we have reviewed the 6 parts of our tree, right? We said roots, stem or trunk, leaves, fruit, seeds, and flowers. So what we're going to do in part 2 of our program is we're going to go for a walk where we investigate and study some of the trees and look for all these parts. We're going to look at the bark, we'll look at the leaves, we'll look to see if it has fruit or flowers, and we're even going to learn the name of some of these trees today when we go on our walk.